I want to bring us back to where we are here today at Tai Kwun, this amazing project which just opened a few months ago. We thought that in the context of Hong Kong, past, present, and future, this will be the best opening panel we could find. And with that, I would like to invite our next speakers, Timothy Calnin from Tai Kwun, Gabriel Yam from ARUP, and our moderator, Edward Long from AEDAS to the stage. Thank you.
I see the audience already getting very excited. So I'm very honored to have two guests here. We have Timothy here, who has been in the Tai Kwun projects for the past years, from the beginning to now. And then he can talk about the how this project come about and what's the vision of it and how we come about to here. And then Gabriel will talk about the technical aspects, what is being considered during this transformation. Shall I ask Timothy to start first?
Thanks, Edward. Yeah, I'd be delighted. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to have you all here at Tai Kwun. We've only been open for about 9 months. And maybe I should correct a little thing that Edward said. I've only been with this project actually for 2 years, but that gave me 1 year to watch the final stages of construction and all the interior fit-outs. And then we opened very excitedly in May of last year. Something the previous speaker mentioned about alternative histories of Hong Kong. I recently took the Consul General of the United Kingdom around the site, and I started in the parade ground, and I said to him, it always occurs to me that if Hong Kong had been actually an Italian colony, the first thing the Italians would have done would be to plant a vineyard. But the British built a police station. And that was in 1841, and you see the first evidence of that actually marked out in steel markers on the parade ground. I just thought it might be interesting to try and, is it that one? Yes, to show you a few images. I might stand up. A few images of what the Central Police Station looked like at the time that it was decommissioned. It was decommissioned in 2006, and actually, I don't know, Gabriel, whether you were among that group of people who visited when they had an open day. The Hong Kong government had an open day. I think it was in about 2007, before this whole project was fully announced. And then in 2008, the partnership between the Hong Kong government and the Hong Kong Jockey Club was announced to transform the former Central Police Station. It comprises 3 declared monuments: the Central Police Station, the Central Magistracy, and the Victoria Jail, Victoria Prison, to transform this whole site, it's a whole city block, into a centre for heritage and arts. It actually went through a couple of stages. I'll just flick through a few images. I've done a completely text-free PowerPoint, so you won't need to take any notes. These are mostly images of what the site looked like at the time that it was decommissioned. The whole idea evolved actually through some intentional and some unintentional public consultation, I think it's fair to say. And eventually we arrived at a scheme which is the one that was realised and opened to the public last year. It was a very complex project from the point of view of heritage conservation, and also the whole idea of transforming this site into something that was that's intended to really invite the public in. It's a very different concept. I mean, even when you think about one of the fundamental design principles of any public space is for the public a means of escape. Well, obviously when you design a prison, it's the last thing you think about. So that was an important thing to try and, I mean, I use that as a joke, but really it's to try and imagine the transformation of a place that had a very, very clear set of functions and was designed precisely to reflect those functions, and really to turn that on its head and make it a place that really welcomes the public in, instead of pretty much preventing the public from coming in and preventing prisoners from getting out, and a place that, you know, people would really want to avoid because it always meant primarily that there was something wrong, into a place that people are attracted to. The Central Magistracy, which we're just about to open, is sort of one of the last remaining buildings that's yet to be open to the public. This is one of the cell blocks that, if you've had a chance to walk around the site, this is a very popular location. It looks almost exactly like that. That's what it looked like pretty much when the last prisoner left. And we've kept it, we've just given it another lick of paint, but we've kept that, that institutional colour scheme and all of its rather confronting features. And that's something that's very popular from the public's point of view. So the really remarkable thing is the location. Here we are, this kind of entire city block. And I love the way this aerial shot makes it look like a clearing in a forest surrounded by high-rise. And that gives you a sense of the uniqueness of this site, which every other site within a couple of kilometres radius is covered in high-rise. And this is one beautifully preserved oasis, really through an accident of history and fortunate good timing. So if we move on to the whole transformation project, I should give you maybe what we arrived at. I have this hilarious job title, the Director of the Central Police Station, but I'm an arts administrator by background, and I run the operating company, which is called the Jockey Club CPS Limited. Now, this company was formed about 5 years ago to really be prepared to take on the operation of Tai Kwun when we opened to the public, and obviously we had enough time, a few years, to gear up for that and prepare for it. We established our vision for the site, and that's a kind of to cast the horizon out 10 or 20 years, and that's to be a model of best practice in heritage conservation, a place of inspiration, stimulation and enjoyment that Hong Kong people are proud of. Now it's obviously, it's a big vision and it's something that can only evolve over time. I think we're seeing that sense of pride coming through now that we've been open for 3/4 of a year. We've had 2.5 million visitors in that time, many of whom are returning for a second, third, fourth, 10th time. So that vision means that we, of course, need to be a very inviting place, and part of that is solved by some brilliant access design. This footbridge was one of the most inspirational things actually to come out of the whole project. It connects to the central to mid-levels escalator and is a kind of really, it's a very inviting sort of funnel that people are drawn into, whether they intended to come up to visit us or not. It's a very alluring portal into the site. It's designed by the Swiss architects Herzog and de Meuron, who are the firm that's responsible for this building and the galleries building, and also for all of the connecting structures, all of the link bridges and that you see around the site. But really, this whole idea of turning a space from a police station and a prison and a magistrate's court into a place for the public is something that, apart from being achieved by the highest standards of heritage conservation and having really beautiful spaces for people to enjoy, for that to be sustainable over time really needs to be supported by a very active program. And that's really what my organisation is focused on. And we take the view that we need to effectively run a 365-day festival. We need to make sure that there's always something happening, that all of our interesting and rather eccentric and quirky spaces are utilised in a creative and imaginative way that will attract people to come back time and again. I mean, I mentioned before that we've clocked up 2.5 million visitors. That's a very impressive number. We never announced how many visitors we wanted to have annually, but we had in the back of our mind maybe 1 million, 1.5 million in the first year. We're well and truly on track to double that. But I think more importantly is to try to understand whether this is a place that Hong Kong people are really considering as their own and something that they really feel a sense of pride and ownership of. And we have to do that by drawing people back frequently. So I'd say that at the end of our first year, the most meaningful measure of whether we've really hit the target will be how many people are returning frequently throughout the year rather than those single visitation numbers. This is taken in the prison yard, which is just behind this curtain here. There's actually a beautiful wall of windows that overlooks the prison yard. Behind that screen. And of course you can see the wonderful gallery building, the JC Contemporary, which has 1,500 square metres of really beautiful gallery space, and it's purpose-built for contemporary art. So it's a very big investment in contemporary art, and that's one of the biggest characteristics of our programming. We have 6 to 8 large-scale exhibitions in those galleries every year. And it's a very interesting time for Hong Kong because somewhat inadvertently in the last 12 or 15 years, Hong Kong has become a real centre for contemporary art, and that's been driven almost exclusively by the commercial gallery market. And also, of course, at the head of that whole stimulation of interest is Art Basel, which takes place in Hong Kong at the end of March every year. It's a huge success, a really, really major international gathering of galleries, artists, and people who collect and buy art. Having a non-profit, non-collecting gallery like the JC Contemporary is really a way of giving the public the opportunity to develop a knowledge and appreciation of contemporary art. And that's a really great opportunity for us right now. It comes on the back of the development of Hong Kong as a major centre for the sale of contemporary art, but it gives us an opportunity to really inform the public about all the incredible breadth and depth and fascination of contemporary art. And the reason why that's so important from a timing point of view is that within the next 2 years, a little gallery across the water at West Kowloon called M+, which has 15,000 square metres of gallery space, will open with a focus on contemporary art as well. So this is our chance to really get in early and start to develop that knowledge and appreciation in the community so that by the time M+ opens, they've also got a starting point for their programming, and they can take that further. The architects have created some really beautiful signature features in the buildings. This is the staircase in JC Contemporary, a beautiful swirling spiral staircase, which I think maybe Gabriel might talk about in a little more detail, so I'll skip over that. And then the building that we're in at the moment, we're just behind this this facade here, a really ingenious piece of design, not just this beautiful intimate theatre, which actually you don't really need to use a mic in here. It's a great acoustic for natural voice projection, but I won't do that. But so it has a wonderful intimacy. It's great for sessions such as this because you can actually engage with every single person in the room. It's a beautiful space for movies. Can you imagine this massive screen in relation to the size of the auditorium? We had the Hong Kong Philharmonic doing a chamber concert here last night. We've had contemporary dance and contemporary theatre in here. It's a very, very adaptable space. But to me, the most brilliant thing that the architects did was to interpret the space underneath here, this wonderful void, and a big set of steps, the full width of this building, to make that a sort of relaxed, informal, casual event space, which we call the laundry steps because there used to be a prison laundry on this location. And that's a site that has really, I think, captured the imagination of Hong Kong people. Everything we do there attracts great response, large audiences. We had a talk by the great Dutch architect Rem Koolhaas back in October. The official capacity of the laundry steps is 240, and we had 600 people that day. So it's really, it's a great space for those sort of spontaneous things. So I would say I'm not going to, I realise that my time is almost up, but I just wanted to let you know that our approach to the transformation of the Central Police Station into a centre for heritage and art is this idea of trying to create a 365-day festival and to be very imaginative in the use of our spaces. What I mentioned about the auditorium here, obviously it has a certain defined purpose, but we have wonderful outdoor spaces like the prison yard and the parade ground, which can be activated, that's the laundry steps, which can be activated in a really wonderful way. So when we opened, we had a very, very spectacular French street theatre company performing this amazing show, which looked incredible at night and was a great example of the sort of thing that you can create in the parade ground. And we ran that for 2 weeks and people absolutely adored it. So I think that these spaces, if they're used imaginatively, and if we don't get sort of stuck in a groove of repetition, but we're constantly reinventing what we do and offering Hong Kong people a really stimulating experience, I think we will achieve that idea of it being something that Hong Kong people can be immensely proud of. And the final point I wanted to make is that we took a very clear decision in supporting that vision from the outset, we decided to focus all of our marketing promotion efforts on the Hong Kong public. We've done no international marketing, and that's a very deliberate choice. Just before we opened, quite a lot of people would say to me, "Oh, what's being created here is a great tourist attraction," and that really it really annoyed me because it sounded sort of inauthentic and disingenuous. To try and create something that's a tourist attraction. To me, Disneyland is one of those inauthentic tourist attractions. It's just like a spaceship that landed out there and has absolutely no reason to be there or anywhere else. Whereas this is, authentically and organically of Hong Kong, and we really want that to be the fundamental characteristic so that Hong Kong people really own it, and then they will be our best ambassadors for the international market. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be speaking here at the ULI conference. I'm a structural engineer. It's not very often that a structural engineer speak in front of a lot of planners and developers. But I'll try to show you what the team has done. We spent 9 years on the project. First of all, I'm going to show you a short video showing the scale of the project first. Promotion. Okay, that's 40 seconds, but we spent 9 years on the project. So let's start. Tai Kwun, a place for heritage and arts. Echoing the theme of this forum today, it represents Hong Kong past, present, and future. It all started in 1843 when the first lot of buildings were constructed, and you see that's basically the boundary of the compound. This is interesting. This photo was taken in 1846, and this is, sorry, I'm getting back to that, but basically that was the tallest building back in those days. And it can overlook Victoria Harbour. But now, as Tim said, is very unique. It's surrounded by a lot of high rises right in the center of Central. So it's a very unique and precious place for the people of Hong Kong. Okay, a bit of context for the project. The compound was actually developed over 150 years, and there had been a few stages of construction. Basically, 3 declared monuments, 16 historical buildings, so basically I've done 16 projects. 2 new iconic buildings, new footbridges, and most important of all, open spaces. I'm just going to show you some of the conservation work that has been done on this project. This is one of the oldest buildings, D Hall. It was constructed in 1846, it's completed. It was a prison cell block. When it first started, you can see there was severe cracking from top to bottom. And obviously, that was caused by settlement and cracks. We suspected that was happened during the construction of the adjoining building. You see, the building was strapped with wires and steel frames. So the cracks was like 5 inches from the roof to ground. So the team had actually spent a lot of effort in saving this one of the oldest building. One of the things that we done was to do the ground improvement. We put in microfine cement grout into ground so that all the settlements or all the ground loss has been compensated and improved the ground conditions. And after that, the tiles were removed and the facade were repaired. So the former glory of the building was restored. The other example is the West Wing D Hall. It used to be prison cells or enclosed. But the vision of the client is to make it as an open space, as a cafe. So all the internal walls and external walls were kind of removed. We integrate structural strengthening and aesthetic together. So steel arches were formed and stuck in between the masonry arches. And I think the outcome was just an integration of architecture and engineering. I think we're going to have afternoon tea in this cafe. So you can look at how the building were actually strengthened and also aesthetically upgraded. We've also done a lot of other things that I would say is pioneer in Hong Kong. It's always conservation and regulations. I'm sure people who work in Hong Kong knows about the AMO and also Buildings Department. There's always a conflict between the two government bodies. And what we have done is to try to get a balanced approach between conservation and regulation, making sure that we keep as much as possible the building fabric, but at the same time complies with the regulations and safety standards. Interesting facade. The architects want to clad the new building with a facade that mimic the existing granite wall. So we started with the materials, recycled aluminum from alloy wheels. Each brick unit that we make use about 7 alloy wheels. And a very simple Lego block concepts. So we were able to interconnect the brick units together and the joints that are not visible to people. And we use a low pressure die casting method to cast each of these 4,000 pieces per building. So there you go. That's by putting there are 3 different modules, and by putting them together in different patterns, you see that's the outcome of the Arbonite wing, which is where we are now. And it's because of the porosity in the facade, you can actually see through from inside to outside and from outside to inside. So that's a communication between the inside and the outside. New functional spaces are also created. International standards galleries, signature staircases. There's also open spaces in the parade ground, in the prison yard, and laundry step, as mentioned by Tim. And in order to connect them, new link bridges were created, and portals were created through the building so that people can have easy access all the way from the parade ground to the prison yard. Footbridges, as mentioned by Tim, that provide good access for people coming up from MTR through the mid-level escalator to our compound. And we actually spent a bit of time in convincing the government that this footbridge does not need a cover. There was a stage when we were asked to put a cover on top of the footbridge, and it would definitely affect the aesthetic of the Block 1. So again, in the CE statement in the opening, it's a gift for the people of Hong Kong and the money well spent. I think what the outcome is that we have been taking a lot of professionals, even governments to Tai Kwun for visit. This particular group of people represent the building committee from the buildings department. What's going to happen is they are drafting the next version of the guidebook for adaptive reuse, and some of our examples could possibly be incorporated into the next version. So basically, we want to set an exemplar for as a conservation project in Hong Kong, and we're trying to do that. Outdoor performances, art shows within the gallery. These are actually my kids with 1 million visitors. I actually contribute over 1,000 of them, my friends and my family. So, so we come here very often because it's just a great place to visit on the weekend. This is when they reached 1 million visitors. Tim was in the middle. We got recognized by a few international media, Times and The Guardian. To summarize, I think that the team have transformed this unique heritage compound into an international hub for arts and culture, and most important for the leisure of the people of Hong Kong. Every weekend when I come, I see the happy faces, and I'm very proud of the project. So thank you.
There are sort of two camps of people who think that we shouldn't have food and beverage outlets, we shouldn't have licensed bars, and there's a slight sort of tone of moral judgment, I think, behind some of those comments. But I think that this whole question of revitalisation, you really get a wonderfully palpable sense of that if you stand in the parade ground at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening. There's a tremendous buzz, and the thing that we do have to watch is that buzz doesn't get too noisy, but there is a tremendous vitality, and that to me is a great expression of the revitalisation of this site. Now, we obviously, it's easy for people to say, "Oh, you're becoming another Lang Kwai Fong." We're really not, and we're not. We make sure that nothing is happening in the open air after 11 p.m. Everybody has to go inside. Doors have to be closed, windows closed. That's a very responsible move. But I think that atmosphere that you could sense on day one when some of the outdoor bars were in operation from the very opening, that really defined this quality of revitalisation.
I'm going to come to you in a moment in upgrades, but I'm going to stay on Timothy. How about the question of gentrification? Is it too elite? The activities the Cube is holding. Why not turn it into a wet market?
I think if it was first of all, the majority of our programs are free of charge to the public, so that completely removes that barrier. It is a centre for heritage and arts, so that means there has to be a certain intellectual integrity to the programming, but we complement that with really broad public entertainment. So that image I showed you of the French Street Theatre Company was an incredibly delightful, very family-oriented, not particularly profoundly intellectual program, but that we try to balance the entire year's program to make sure that there's something for absolutely everybody throughout the year, all ages, all backgrounds, all levels of knowledge about arts and heritage. And I think the fact that we have free flow entry, it's initially we put in place a time ticketing system just because we wanted to make sure that we weren't causing disturbance to the neighbourhood by having unpredictably large numbers of people arriving in our first couple of weeks. We dropped that by the first week of June of last year, and we have hardly had to use any kind of access control. So there's free access to the site from 10 o'clock in the morning until 11 p.m. And I don't think there's any sense that there's anything elite about what we. I don't think you could say, looking at the full scope of our program, that there's any sense of eliteness in our approach to the public programming, because we do try to make sure there's something for absolutely everyone.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Okay. So I was actually involved in the project at the start. I mean, in a way. We got programs, new programs, like the multi-purpose hall here. We got programs for art. We really have to find space. Fitting those space into existing building means a lot of structural alterations, which would actually destroy the fabric itself. Not to mention that because modern days we got air conditioning and all these water tanks. Above here, we have all the external AC units here. So without the new buildings, we have to find the space, or even within existing building, to house those modern days M&E services, which again would be destructive or again affect the original fabric. So it's just how to integrate the new structures within the existing heritage fabric. And I think the architects and the team have done, well, I think is a reasonably good job. So we had put in 2 new buildings right in between the buildings. We got a decent separation. And also at the same time, we got connections When you come to this building, you actually got tunnels connecting to the existing building. So again, there's separation on the outside, but also there's integration between existing and new. So I think in a way, and I've seen other examples internationally that if you want to revitalize the compound, there are a certain degree of new elements in it, but it certainly needs to be integrated with the existing. And there's been some successful examples, and I hope that we can be another example that people can be proud of.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.